Yet, the wonderful thing is that after some self-reflection and conversation, the prophet comes back around to saying, we are your people. You are the potter. We are your clay. You have formed us and reformed us. You have shaped us. An incredible image. But sometimes we're not so sure we want to be reshaped or reformed. What does it mean to hear the words of the prophet and to be remolded into a way that we are now about justice? That we care about our brothers and sisters, seeing who they really are and coming back into full relationship and community. Having the hard conversation that breaks open hearts, that challenges us to live in new and deep and profound ways. What does it mean when we look out and say that things need to change? That we can't just rebuild the temple or the church the way that it's always been. We can't just structure society in the way that it's always been if it's neglected a good portion of the people around us. We can't just live into the economic markets, riding high on the highest of the stock markets to this point, if we are leaving 25 to 40% of the people behind. What happens when we are praying this prayer with the prophet that the heavens would be torn apart and God would be made known? And when you get to the Gospel of Mark, isn't that the image that Jesus is giving us? That God will tear open the heavens and that the Son of Man, this one who is the bearer of life, of hope for the people, will break in with clouds and wonder, allowing the people to live fully and deeply and richly in a new way. That becomes something that we can hold on to in the now and not yet. Something that we can be transformed by as we work to live richly and deeply. As we go about this work, however, we've got some challenges ahead of us. And I want to talk especially to those of us who are white. We've got some work ahead of us. Study after study shows that our social networks are pretty monocultural. Now here at Calvary, I'd like to think that's different. But we need to push our society and push ourselves in terms of who is part of our social network. How do we live faithfully together? How do we develop this relationship of brother and sister among all the people? How do we look at those places of privilege in our lives and step back and analyze? To take account of all of the things that have been handed to us, in a sense. And what does it mean for people who have felt in exile, carried off, to come back? What does it mean to stand together and work things out? Knowing that at times there may be some foot stomping. There may be some times where we get worked up or say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. And yet we acknowledge that to be okay. That in the midst of that, God continues to form and reform us, not letting people fall by the way, but drawing us back together. Making of us incredible vessels that then show forth God's grace. That become vessels poured out for the whole of humanity. Here at Calvary, in the next year, we are working to make some really significant strides, particularly on this issue of racial equity and racial justice. This past Monday night, Church Council met and approved a letter of agreement with Sherman Hicks. Sherman Hicks will be coming here to Calvary in May when I am on sabbatical for 3 months. And he will be journeying with the congregation, excited to get to know each and every one of you, but also with a word of hope and challenge when we talk about racial equity and racial justice. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Pastor Hicks, he served in New Jersey, in Chicago, and in Washington, D.C. at Lutheran congregations. He was an assistant to the bishop in Illinois, and eventually bishop in Metro Chicago and Metro D.C. It's not many congregations that have the opportunity to say, our pastor's going on sabbatical, and oh, by the way, we just have a bishop coming to hang out with us for a few months. But it's also not a time to slack off. It's a time for us to really be awake to how we might be a people of God, living and speaking a word of justice in this place for all people. If there's anything that Ferguson shows us, is that there is a lot of work to be done. And if the church doesn't step up now, we are in a lot of trouble, now and in the future. This draws us back to the promise. Living in faith, we step out boldly. And I love Advent in the season of expectation, not in that it's this Jesus coming tomorrow with clouds and trumpets and the wonder, but in the understanding that each and every day God is coming, breaking into our hearts and into our world in every act of justice, in every act of kindness, in every way that we are challenged to be the people of God, that we are formed and reformed, that Jesus comes among us. When our hearts look at our brothers and sisters and say, yes, they are my people. I am no longer in exile. They are no longer in exile, but we are brought back together to be about the work of God. The acts of mercy outpoured, the love shown forth. And with that, we rise up and we sing and we say, oh God, what a morning. What a morning when we can feel that trumpet sound that calls us to acts of righteousness and justice. When we can hear that trumpet calling us forth in the wonder of the Most High. When we sing out, oh my Lord, what a morning. Amen. That is where we're going this Advent season. Be awake and live fully in the wake of broken hearts and broken dreams. Cry out. Tear open the heavens, O Lord, and come. And in that may we see your face. My Lord, what a